Okay, should we start?
Let's
Uh,
go.
let's go. Hi and welcome to the release webinar for version 11.4. I am Daniel, the principal engineer of Curity, and with me today I have Renato, our chief engineer. Hi Renato, thanks for joining.
Hello. Thank you.
So we have a very nice release today uh, with a few highlights that we're going to go through and a small demo, and we're also going to go through the list of uh, adjustments that we've done, enhancements and corrections. So first of all, our FIPS image is no longer in preview. We recently made a preview release of 11.4 with a new image in place so that we could test it out a little bit before releasing it for real. So now the FIPS compliant Docker image is out of preview. This requires a separate license, so you can probably not run it directly, but you're now able to comply to those regulations. SDK plugins can publish their own metrics, which is something that we've have a lot of different questions around. So it's good to finally get that out there. DB scopes, fairly new feature, was not really configurable through the admin UI in previous releases, but that has now been added. And we've added DPoP support for all OAuth flows, which is quite big and it's going to be very useful. And of course, lots of bug fixes and other minor things that didn't make it into the highlight. But first, maybe we should take a quick demo of the DB scopes. Then, Renato, you prepared?
Yeah, I am. So let me share my screen so that I can show what it looks like, because it has been quite some work to get it seamlessly into the admin UI, into the existing framework that we already had for scopes and claims, which is a very complex screen. So we tried to make it easy to understand how it works. So if you go to the OAuth profile, to the token service, and first of all, to use database scopes, you do need to use one of the database client types. For example, ephemeral clients or database clients, because the configuration clients, they cannot currently configure database scopes themselves because they live in separate worlds, basically. So the first thing that I'll do here is just add a database client. So here we are. I need to enable that. That's no problem. We need a database. There you go. Selected one. And here you can see I can say, yes, I want to use database scopes for my database clients. And the first thing that this wizard will ask you is to select an entity manager. And here you really just want to let the UI create one for you. It's currently we are still developing the entity management system. And in future versions, there will be a lot more to talk about it. But for now, let's just accept that you need to create one, and it will be used for database scopes management. So you can see here the entity manager has been created. You select a database. It can be any of your data sources that supports them. And then here you can see that it's a schema that was auto-generated from the entity manager. And you probably just don't need to worry too much about this for now. But in the future, there will be schemas that you can configure more things here. So keep an eye on that one. And if you do next, that's it. That's all you need to do. Very easy. So I'll click on next here. And yep, so now the database scopes are enabled. You have to commit it to make to be able to configure more things like after. So it's good to do it early. So now if I go to the database clients, I already have prepared one here. You will see that if I go to the scopes and claims section here, there is a new tab that's called database scopes. And here is where you can create, and just like you can do with your config scopes, which already existed before, you can do now with this database scopes as well. But to show this, let me just go to the main screen for scopes, which is this one here. Nope, not now. And here you will also have the same view. I just want to show that this is an independent of the client itself, but we just make it easier for you to configure. So I'll create one here. Let's say accounts, right? Can be whatever name you want. And there you go. And I will say, yep, I want to save this. Notice that, like there's two different words a little bit here, because one is the config word where you commit things, and then there's the database word where you save things to the database. So it's a little bit separated, but when I go back to the client now and I try to configure a config scope, you will see that it will be there. I already passed it. There you go. Database scopes. So add scopes. This is my browser showing some useless help, but you can see accounts right here now. And you see, like, because this is a database client, same thing like with the scope, you need to save it to the database when you make changes, not commit. So let me save that. And that's it. Now my client has a database scope, and it can be used from now on. It looks exactly the same as any other scopes. This has been also added to ephemeral clients. So let me just show you that it works in very much the same way. So ephemeral clients, for those of you who are not familiar, it's basically a new specification for clients that are not that are like you control them. They live in your URL. We take the metadata from that and create a temporary client in our server. And so for that, we need obviously a HTTP client to fetch your configuration for it. And here we can enable that any client that is not registered, because you don't really register clients that are ephemeral, but and for a client to be usable, you want to limit what it can do. We can't just do anything. So you can configure here what the scopes will be. So for the config scopes, you can just select all, none, or specific ones. But if you go to database scopes, you can see that you can just pick the ones that you want to enable. So I will just enable this one, allow ephemeral clients to request this scope. Yes, I want to. And there you go. So as you can see, really easy to configure clients now to use these database scopes, and they automatically go to their database from the admin UI.
Very nice.
And that
Yeah.
that was my demo.
I had some questions from a customer earlier where this entity manager and the schema that you create. Before this, you had to do it with a config spec. But the schemas and things like that, that's all config, right? It's not in the database itself.
That's right. We store some configuration that it will let us know how to interpret the entity system, which is something we are developing to be able to do more generic things than just scopes and clients in the database. In the future, we will have what we are calling a graph of entities, a graph of entities, let's say. And scopes are part of that now, and there will be more in the future. And that's why we have this kind of indirection there with the entity manager. But like I said, we can't talk too much about that right now because we just don't have yet the feature finalized. It's just finalized enough for database scopes.
For sure, but it's opening up for a lot of possibilities that
Yeah,
we're planning to add to the product. Um, but that's great. Thanks for the demo. Uh, so next step in the webinar is to go through the enhancements then and try to explain a bit what they're about. And Renato, if I keep me honest, if I'm saying something wrong, just stop
of
me.
course. It's a lot to
Uh,
go through, so
yeah, it's a
hard
long
to
list.
remember. Yeah.
So first of all, we've improved the web application loading times. So when you're using Happy with the WebDriver, we did some optimizations where with the different load in the order things were loaded, so that browsers could be a bit better of caching the right things, which improved performance quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah,
It's
not much
basically
more.
the WASM file that we use to run in the browser. It's a separate resource, so it can be cached. And that's yeah, it's a little bit heavy, so it improves quite a bit of the loading time.
Good. And on a similar subject, when using the WebDriver, and you were probably timing out during the attestation process or during the authentication, the error messages that came out to the browser was not always very descriptive of what the actual error was. So, for instance, if you're making too many requests in a short amount of time, the driver wants you to back off. So now you get better error messages towards that, and you can handle it a bit better. It's still going to be an error, but you should be able to figure out what the error is a bit easier. Some updates to the response schema in Happy. Yeah, a generic attribute object that has been added to the responses that can contain some extra information needed in that particular step. And also a change to the authorization response in the code flow that we also now can support form post response mode, as opposed to we only did the redirect or the query, it's called, right?
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
there's
this view data it's a little bit necessary to be added to the schema, to the generic schema, because in the client operations they have a stricter schema. It's necessary for us to add things to it later. So that's why we had to add this. So there is no changes required to clients, just to support this for now. But in the future, there may be some cloud operations that will have specific things the client must support.
good note. So jumping down to the authentication service, add the subject to the credential transformation procedure context. So this context is when you are creating a procedure to transform your passwords before validation happens. In some cases, it might be necessary to have the actual subject of the user available when do this transformation. And now it's available in the context, so they can use it to calculate your password somehow.
Yeah, that's just one thing. We say this is optional because there are ways to run this procedure without having a subject, even though it should never happen if you just use the standard authentication flows. But there is it's like it could be possible depending on how you do things. But you can pretty much count on the subject being there. And in the next release, we are extending this to a new type of plugin as well. But we will see come to the next release notes, and I will talk more about that.
Sounds good. Bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah, so improve handling of resend activation email. So in some cases, we could double send the email when the account was already active, and now we stopped the server from doing that. Do you have any more details on this one? I don't remember.
Now, I think that there is a similar other issue about this. We are trying to prevent replay, and this is kind of one part that we try to remember if a link has been utilized already. So we invalidate the other links that were generated, because more than one link can be active at the same time, and I believe that's that we had to do a little bit of a state management there to be able to solve these problems.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more tickets around this subject then, but let's take them in order. Expose geolocation in action attributes or context attributes. So before 11.4, Curity had geolocation actions available to configure in any authentication flow. But now we also make those attributes available in the context so that you can run your actions and then take different actions than the one that are built into the actions. So we make it more customizable, pretty much. So this ticket is about just making it available for actions, but we also enable it in the SDK. More of that later. And in the HTML form authenticator, this is also what you're not talked about. Invalidate all outstanding password reset links after successful password reset. So if you have multiple emails sent to do a password reset and you use the first one that you received, the other ones are invalidated so that you don't accidentally leak extra email information, and someone should be able to steal those links or anything like that. It's a long description, but it's in JDBC, DynamoDB, and MongoDB. In the SAML authenticator, in the SAML responses have attributes that contain a type, and some of those types are any URI. So if the type any URI was used, we sometimes had a mismatch because there was white space in those URIs. So we've done a bit of a better generic normalization of those URIs to not run into bugs. I think audience is mentioned here, so I guess that's where the bug was.
That's like when you have a new line in the XML, is it? Like the new line needs to be trimmed.
Yeah, exactly. More on the SAML authenticator. If we had we have a config flag saying that we require audience restriction, that we require the response to say what audience this is for. This did not take into account the fact that you can send an empty audience restriction. So this has been tightened up. So an empty audience restriction is interpreted as no audience restriction. And another authenticator, the Twitter authenticator. The authenticator we have in the product is based on an old API using old standards. So we want to remove it, but we can't just remove authenticators, so we deprecate it now. So it will be removed in an upcoming release, likely 12.
If anybody's interested in Twitter or the X authenticator, do let us know, because we don't currently have a plan to write a new one, but depending on interest, we may do it.
Yeah, but also if you're using Twitter as your social login, they support OpenID nowadays, so we can use the OIDC authenticator. More authenticators, the WebAuthn. This is a popular feature request, actually allowing to configure the RPID. So in our WebAuthn and passkey authenticator, we set the RPID to be the host name currently in the browser, which means it's usable only for that subdomain. But making it possible to configure the RPID, we can put it higher up in the domain hierarchy, making it usable across your subdomains. A passkey is allowed to be used on domain +1. So if you're using Curity on loginexample.com, that means by default it's usable also on api.login.example.com. But if you configure it to be example.com, it can be used across all your subdomains under example.com. So this is usable if you have multiple tenants that use subdomains as a differentiator. But this is an opt-in feature. We'll continue using the host name if you don't configure it. Some front-end changes. The front-end apps are now on GitHub, so we've done some changes there. And for this first ticket is about updating the deployment guide in the README. So we give you some tips and tricks there, how to handle that. We also, in the global, so to speak, the UIKit deploy script, we include now the Happy React app to be used for API-based logins, API-driven UI. That's what we call it. So to make it easier to deploy it to your server.
And by the way, if somebody is not familiar with this logging app, I highly recommend having a look at this repository on GitHub. It's a very nice framework that React-based and very easy to integrate if you want to try it.
Yes, definitely. It's a big improvement from the template-based login app. Mostly the same experience currently, but since it's React-based, you have a bit more freedom in how you render things and make it easier to include your own styling and components.
And as the next ticket says, we even support themes now.
Yes, exactly. So we have the UI viewer. What do we call it? The previewer. Also for this new UI type, and now we can import different CSS themes using it, which was always possible with the templates, but now it's also available in the API driven. And a bunch of dependencies have been updated. Should not be breaking, but if you're interested, the list is in GitHub.
Yeah, because it's a library, we did some major upgrades. So if you rely on the library, as any library, it may have transitive breaking changes. So we can't not guarantee that didn't happen. So that's why we want to mention in the notes here, just to be aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. Some SDK changes. A new service has been added in many applications that at least my team write. We create an application plugin that uses the token and authentication service as the login service, and that has to be rewritten for every plugin, pretty much. But now we've added a service so that you can add in, you can tie a OAuth client to your application plugin that handles the whole login flow. Pretty much as the user service portal and token handler does it already, but now it's available in your application plugins.
So because we already know all the metadata there is for the server, right? We don't need to configure again. We just link to it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And also with the added benefit that it also handles the OAuth flows for you. A slight note there is that the UI support for configuring this did not make it into the release, so we will add that in the next one. But it's possible to configure through XML and CLI as usual. Another new service, the metrics collector. As I mentioned earlier, we can now publish metrics around your plugin through the same service that we use to publish Grafana statistics or to the Prometheus endpoint. So they are automatically scoped to the plugin implementation type. You should be able to differentiate the metrics from each other in your dashboards. Anything to add there, Renato?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, we also add a couple of labels automatically so that you know exactly which plugin is publishing what. So it should be easy to understand when you look at your dashboard. what the metrics are about.
Yes, good. Next, different types are now stable. We had some types in the SDK that were marked experimental that we took away the marking. And if you are interested, you should look at the upgrade guides to get the full list.
Yeah, exactly. It's mentioned there, and the way we are doing it is basically the oldest experimental features are becoming stable, and we will try to be a bit better about promoting experimental features to stable from now on. But this is our first step towards stabilizing many features.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Next is the login web application. There's a few names of this, but the Happy React app is called Happy React app on GitHub, but in our release notes they're still called login web application. So they mean the same thing.
Yeah, we are kind of renaming actually. We should change it.
Yeah. But there are a few things in there. The first version of the React app did not have all the bank ID accessibility elements that we've added to the templates lately. But in this version, we've promoted them also to the React application. So things like the counter and the progress bar are now in the LWA.
And that was why we added the view data, isn't it? I think.
I think so, yeah.
To the schema.
Not fully sure, but I believe so.
It was related.
Yeah. To improve handling of links for non-happy resources. So just in the React app, we changed a little bit on how unknown links are handled. If we don't know what the link is, then we open up a new browser tab so we don't navigate away from your current authentication. And same, this is also related to what we said before. The addition to the happy responses is that we now support form response mode also for the login web application. And WebAuthn attachment selection and general error messages are similar to the bank ID. We have a UI in the templates that we have been accustomed to, and now we've also added that to the React application so that you're able to select what type of device you're registering when using WebAuthn. If it's a built-in device with a thumbprint or like a YubiKey, something like that. Over to the token profile. Allow attributes created by TIA plugins end up in token procedure context. So we added the functionality to for each token issuance authorizer to be able to add on context data. This is so that we can use it in the upcoming TIAs or in the token procedures, so that the TIAs can collect some information that are used later on in issuance if they gave a positive response. And here comes the big ticket, DPoP support. So we've had limited DPoP support before. When using Happy, we create a key pair that we're able to bind the refresh token to, so that only the same client can use the refresh token that came out from the operation. But now we've added the full generic DPoP support, so that any type of client can send in their token requests or the authorization requests, the DPoP headers, and obtain DPoP bound access tokens, and also DPoP bound authorization code. It says that Happy token is not an exception, and it's not really that Happy is accepted. It's that we haven't added this functionality to the mobile SDKs yet, or the web SDK. But the clients themselves could add on this information so that we get DPoP bound tokens as well. This is currently worked on and will be coming out fairly soon.
Which is really nice because that means that like you will have cryptographically bound tokens for all the way, including all our GraphQL and Skin APIs as well, and all of the token endpoints. So it's quite a good improvement in security.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is huge, really, because this makes it possible to raise the bar on your security quite a bit, moving away from bearer tokens altogether and coming into bound tokens is a big step and something that we had support for, but only using MutualTLS and things like that. So now it makes this more accessible and easier to use, and also DPoP has in adoption it grown quite a bit latest years. So this is a very good addition to the server. Then some more TIAs. Make TIA plugin also run after claims resolution. So the way the TIAs work is that they run before we collect the values that actually ends up in the tokens. So a TIA can used to be more of a scope authorizer. And you feed in the scopes and the context, and we can take the decision if we're allowed to release the scopes, and then we resolve the claim values. What we added in this release is to run again after the claims have been resolved, so that we can actually authorize the exact token that is being issued. So TS has the chance to say stop to issue a admin value of the group's claim, for instance.
And
so this is
that makes it possible to use TS to plug into very advanced policy engines, right?
Yeah. So currently we can use auth-send, for instance, to make callouts to PDPs and give them the full values. Are we allowed to issue this? And it's also possible to write plugins around this to plug into other systems that does not support auth-send. We might add some more TS in the product to be able to interface with known products. But currently we have the auth-send, which is very well adopted with the PDPs, I'd say. This is a big step in the token intelligence part of our product, making it possible to always authorize the access even before it's making the access.
So which is something very useful for AI agents in general, right? Because they authorize more often for more different things, and then you having this policy engine makes things much easier to control.
Yeah, for sure, and making it a lot more visible, since we can take very advanced authorization decisions on every request coming up, and be very fine-grained in what types of permissions we give away to such agents. More on the agents part, support client metadata parameter token endpoint auth method supported for ephemeral clients. This is a parameter that's actually not in the standard.
Exactly.
But ChatGPT uses it, so we should allow it as well. So
Sorry, I just wanted to write. They didn't just make it up though. They used an extension to the specification that allows for this, and we support it now, so that OpenAI in general should work now with our server.
Yeah. And the difference between the token endpoint auth method supported is that this is a list of different types of methods the agent can support. So that means the server can choose which one to use.
Exactly. So it's basically a negotiation between the server and the clients now, and they will look at both of them have this exact same list, and they will just do a union of them and see which is the most secure possible way to do it, and they will choose that method, which is for ephemeral clients is going to be the JOT. What is it called? The
Private key JOT.
private key JOT. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, but they ChatGPT does support also public clients. That's why they do this. They have this option like if your server doesn't support the private JOT, it will just not authorize, which is fine for certain deployments. But of course, you wouldn't want to use that unless you're really sure what you're doing.
For sure. Here, support enabling API-driven UI in database clients and DCR templatized clients. So API-driven UI roughly translates into the use in the logging application, the Happy React, instead of the templates. This was only configurable for config clients before, but now we can use it in database and DCR clients as well. On procedures, expose web service clients to token script procedures. We had the concept of web services clients to be able to call external services during an operation like an action or token procedures. This has been the only ones I've been able to use it are the ones that we are actually allowed to use, or if you use a plugin. Since token procedures are often written in JS, they have not had the web service client available, but we now added it into the context the same way we did for things like the script action. But it functions the same way as it does everywhere else in the product.
Yeah. And previously, you would have to just go the lower level, which is the HTTP client, right?
You didn't have the HTTP client either in token procedures, so you had to use Nashorn.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Or
okay.
or resort to making a token procedure plugin where you have all of this available.
Right. Yeah, okay. I actually had that question myself.
Yeah, the Nashorn way is of course functional and will continue working, but this is a lot easier to handle.
Right.
A new event, fire event when temporary lockout reaches max in credential manager. So yeah, if you have the credential policies on your credential manager and your user is locked out, we fire an event so that you can take action on it. Either send an email or do some other type of operation in your system just because they were temporarily locked out. Improvements to persistent jobs. Persistent jobs now have a task recovery mechanism, retry backup, and other improvements. I'm pretty sure you know better about this than I do, Renato.
Yeah, this is something that we actually added to as a service in the SDK, and we use internally to run things that must execute regardless of what happens. So that's why we call it persistent, because they persist even if for example, the server dies, the job will persist and it will be executed later. So what this is a new service. So I think 1 or 2 releases ago was the first release we had it, and we are, like making sure that this is very robust, and that's why we're making improvements like this to retry, back off, to make sure that we fulfill our promise that the job will be run eventually.
Yeah, good improvements. Moving on to HTTP clients, we can now limit the size of the outbound requests for HTTP clients. It's configurable, but defaults to 8 kilobytes.
Yeah, it's because this, unfortunately, this kind of thing is becoming a common source of attacks. You just send a header that is like 1 gigabyte, and the naive servers will parse the header and allocate memory for it. And so we try to defend ourselves so that our customers don't have trouble like this. And this is now very strict. It's only 8 kilobytes, but for the kind of protocols we support, it should be enough. But do have a look at the upgrade guide if you don't think it's enough, and you can make it the limit whatever you think is appropriate.
Good. Improvement to Liquibase. When running Liquibase before this release, if you had config in your init folder, it had to be valid, which in some cases was a problem. And since Liquibase is just about the DB, the config shouldn't really matter. So from this release forward, we can run it with anything in the init folder. Right. Prevent configuring refresh token revocation grace period unless a persistent jobs data source is available. So this is one of the reasons we built the persistent jobs, was to be able to do a grace period for refresh tokens.
Yep.
So if you try to do a refresh but failed somehow, you still have a short time period to retry, because the refresh token is still valid for a little bit longer. This was possible to configure the grace period, but you didn't have a persistent jobs data source. So this is just a config tidying
Exactly.
up.
It's because what would happen is that we would not be able to fulfill our persistent job promise if this was configured like that. You will get a warning. Now it's impossible to validate the config in the first place, which is much better. Hopefully, it will not break any config, because you will probably have noticed it was broken before. So, but yeah, it's in the upgrade guide that it's good to verify that. Make sure that if you configure the grace period, a data source that supports persistent jobs is configured.
Good. And lastly, when the server starts up and fails to obtain the server socket, it will now retry a couple of times before it dies.
Yeah, I need to mention. Yeah, no, there was a couple of fixes related to this in previous releases, and we still ran into this problem anyway, even after all of the effort that we had made. So we decided to do a retry after a few, I think it's a couple of seconds or 5 seconds, I don't remember now, but it's a few seconds, just to make sure, like, because perhaps the previous server that you were running at that port is still shutting down, and there's no way, even with everything that we did before, that you will be able to attach to the socket. So yeah, we didn't want to do a retry, because it's you will be waiting for a few seconds when something else is already running on that. So we wanted to give you feedback as soon as possible, but perhaps because it does happen that your previous service is just shutting down very slowly. We decided to add a retry here.
Yeah, it's probably the safe way to do it. We have been talking a lot, and there's a lot of tickets here. So I think that we're actually going to skip the corrections this time. But we should probably mention the breaking change one.
Yes, please. It's a simple thing. If you configured endpoints, but you didn't add to the correct profile type the endpoint it would have worked for, we didn't validate that, right? So for example, if you configure, I can't remember, but for example, I think an anonymous OAuth endpoint could be configured for the authentication endpoint, in which case you would not get an OAuth endpoint there. You would get an error if you tried to access that, because that endpoint is a token service endpoint. It needs to be in the token profile. And we corrected that now so that we validate a configuration time. And it was just an oversight that we didn't validate that before.
Yeah, so you're likely not affected, but it's good to have a look at your config to make sure that doesn't break.
And you really want to know if you actually have this problem, because then you will know that one of your endpoints would never have worked. It would just throw an exception for sure, because there's no way by the architecture of the system that it could have worked.
No. Yeah. But since we're running out of time, we're skipping the correction section. So please go and have a read through these on your own, and we'll leave you there. Please go download 11.4, give it a try, and let us know if you find any problems with it. I hope you enjoy all the new features. Thank you for joining me, Renato.
Thanks, Daniel. And thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay.